Hi there, this is Christine from Free Folk Farm in Anderson, Indiana, and today we're going to talk about starting seeds inside. This is just an overview of when we plant our seeds indoors. Most seed packets will tell you when you should plant your seeds inside. So if you have a target date that you want to plant them outside, generally the seed packet will say start them 4, 6, 10, 12 weeks before that date. So you can kind of calculate your own dates. So this is just an overview of what we do. So late February, we usually start. These are all cold season crops that can grow outside before the last frost. So we can start them kind of early. Kale and collard greens, you can really start at any time during the year. They'll grow from like March all the way through December. You can even overwinter them in many cases and have them keep growing into the next spring. The last week of March, we plan to start inside our tomatoes and peppers and sunflowers. So these are plants that want to go out in the summer. So this gives them about 6 weeks or so, 4 to 6 weeks before we want to plant them outside. Mid-April is okra, zinnias, cucumbers, and squash. Okra doesn't want to go outside till June 1st because they really like that really hot weather. And then cucumbers and squash, they can go out in mid-May, but we don't want to start them inside too early because they grow really fast and they don't like their roots to be disturbed. So if you let them get too big in a planter pot, then you can't pull them out without disturbing their roots, and that's really stressful to them. And then finally, it's just a list of plants that we always start outside. We just direct seed them. So this is our leafy greens and our root vegetables. You can start any of these inside if you want to, except carrots. Carrots you really only want to direct seed because they put down this long skinny taproot, and if you transplant them, they've already grown that long taproot, and it's not that they won't grow if you transplant them. It's more that they just won't really look like you want your carrot to look. They might look more like Franken carrots. We'll start with our potting soil. When you're starting your seeds inside, you want to make sure to buy a potting soil mix or a seed starting mix, because just regular topsoil, like the dirt you find out in your yard, will be too moist to start seeds in a pot. So when you get a seed starting mix, it has some soil in it. It's also got like perlite, these little white, they're like lava rocks or something, that help aerate the soil. They generally have like coconut coir or like coconut hairs, maybe some peat moss. So they're already a mix of things that are good to keep airflow good around your plant's roots. If you get really into it, you can start with just regular dirt, and you can add in all of those extra things and make your own potting soil. That's not something that we have really delved into, but I know a number of people who do that, and there are resources online to help you with that if that's something you're interested in. So to get started, you want to make sure that your soil is moist, but not wet. So the way to test that is if you grab a handful and squeeze it into a ball, it kind of sticks in a ball, but not so much that there's water coming out of it or that it won't break apart easily. So if your soil is not able to stick together like that, then you will want to add some water and just mix it in gradually until you can make these little clumps. I'm going to start a seed in this little toilet paper tube cup. We went over how to make these in the last video. So to get started, the way that I start seeds in pots is I do this if it's a tray, if it's a pot, freestanding pot. I fill it all the way with soil to the top, and then I push down the soil. If there's a whole lot of room from the top of the soil, once I push it down to the lip, I might add a little bit more, but this is good. So that's packed down in there a little bit. And come back up here. So I have 3 seeds sitting here on this piece of paper. We're gonna plant the middle one. It's a pepper seed. But I got all of these out to talk about the rule of thumb for planting seeds. So generally when you have a seed packet like this, it will tell you, sorry, I have dirt on my hands, in the information how to start it inside. So this says 1/4 inch deep for this pepper seed. It's a jalapeno pepper seed. If you don't have a packet that says that, if you saved your seeds or you just don't really know, a good rule of thumb is that generally seeds are planted about twice as deep as they are thick. So something like a bean, this is a bean seed, they're usually planted 1 to 2 inches deep. Sunflower seeds are also bigger seeds. They're planted kind of deep. Squash seeds, pepper and tomato seeds that are about this big. They're generally about 1/4 inch. Most seeds garden seeds are generally about this size, and they go about 1/4 inch deep. And then this tiny seed right here, that's a seed, not a piece of dirt, is a straw flower seed. So a lot of flowers and some herbs are really tiny seeds, and so they need light to germinate, and you don't want to cover them up at all. So if I were planting this straw flower seed, I would just drop it into my pot on the soil and then kind of lightly water it from the top, being sure not to cover it with dirt as it waters, because it needs to have that light to be able to sprout. But we're gonna go ahead and just do this little pepper seed, if I don't lose it. Got it. And just set it right there in our little tube, so it's right there on the top. And then I'm just gonna grab a little bit more dirt, just cover it up lightly. That's good enough. And then just lightly tamp down that dirt on top. So then I'll water this. We want to keep it moist until it sprouts. A really good way to keep your seeds moist until they sprout, especially if you start them in a tray, or like if you had a bunch of toilet paper tubes that were all the same height, you can cover them with like saran wrap or a piece of glass or plexiglass. Put them in a plastic bag, just to hold that moisture in until they sprout. Once they sprout, you want to take the plastic or glass or whatever it was that you put over top to hold the moisture in. You want to take that off, but that can be really helpful so that you're not having to water a couple times a day to keep the seeds moist until they sprout. If you are starting your seeds indoors, the trick is that you want to have a light fixture directly above the plant growth. So here is our lighting rig. We just have regular shop light, fluorescent light ballasts. I think we took most of these down from our barn when we bought the property, and have them hung on a shelving unit on a chain. So each light is hung from chains so that we can adjust the height up and down, and hang them directly above the plant growth. If you don't keep the light, like an indoor light, directly above your plant growth, the stem will get really long. It's called getting leggy. They'll get really long and stretched out. They'll be weak. It's really not ideal. So you want to keep that light down as low to your plants as you can. And then these are flats of peppers that I just seeded yesterday. So they haven't sprouted yet. But again, we have the light hung really low, so when they do sprout, they're not just reaching really high up for the light. So I'll back up. This is our full lighting rig. So it's just a shelving unit that we saved from the trash, I think, and some light ballasts. We have them plugged into an extension cord or extension cords, and plugged into a power strip so they can all run at the same time. And then we have it on a timer. So this is set to be on from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Just roughly daylight hours to give the plants some light. Once your plants are getting about ready to be transplanted outside, so these are lavender and bunching onions. By the way, it is March 22nd today. So these are cooler season plants, so they can transition to moving outside before the frost sensitive plants like tomatoes and peppers can. So once your plants are ready to or about ready to go outside, you have to do something called hardening off. Hardening off is the process of exposing your plants to sunlight gradually so they don't get scorched by the sun. So we start out, we'll move our plant trays out in the sun for 2 hours a day, and then we'll move them up to 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day. We'll do each for a couple days until we get to like 6 hours, and then they're ready to be planted outside without just getting totally burnt up by the sun. So if you move your plants out too early without hardening them off, their leaves can get really like burnt up and crispy. They're literally getting sunburnt. So the hardening off process is really important. And it also gradually exposes your plants to wind, especially if you have them inside somewhere without like a fan or heavy airflow. Because like with tomatoes and peppers, their stems, they grow a little taller than these guys are right now, and their stems support the plant. So it's kind of like people exercising. If plants aren't exposed to wind, they don't build up like that tissue to be able to hold themselves up against the wind. So it's like when you exercise your muscles, you build up more muscle to withstand whatever exercise you're doing. That's kind of how plants are with the wind. So hardening them off, A, it exposes them to the sunlight, and B, it helps them adjust to being out in the wind and having to really hold their own and have stronger stems. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope that this information was helpful for you in getting your garden started this year. Happy planting. Bye.